Okay, it is 2 o'clock, so I'd like to welcome everyone to the Waterfront Committee meeting of April 23rd, 2026. First, I would like to welcome Krista Hansen. Thank you for being here, the newly appointed Fort Rod Hill and Parks Canada representative to this committee. I would also like to note that Neve Ryan sends her regrets as they are unable to attend the meeting today. I'd also like to acknowledge with respect that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen speaking people, and we are honored to have the opportunity to build strong working relationships with the people of the Songhees and Kosapsum nations. I don't believe we have anybody registered to speak online today. No, okay, great. So we'll move on to item 2, which is approval of the agenda. Is there a mover to adopt the agenda as amended? Great. So Sarah, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. That's unanimous, so motion carried. Next, we'll have the minutes from the October 23rd, 2025 meeting. Before we consider adoption, are there any errors or omissions to note from this committee? And seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting? Moved by Chris. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? And that's unanimous, thank you. So public participation, I don't believe, oh, we do have, hello, hi. So members of the public will now be provided with an opportunity to present concerns or ask questions of the committee. So I do see that we have someone here today. Welcome. So please make sure that when you hit your mic, you state your name and where you live, and please go ahead.
Hello, I live in Colwood. My name is Karen Woodland. I'm on the Environment Parks Committee, and I'm here to speak in favor of the biodiversity strategy. In the perfect world, I think a biodiversity strategy would underpin all decisions by all governments at every level. Biodiversity is life. There was a lot I wanted to say, but I know 2 minutes goes very fast. So I'll cut to the chase and say, I hope not only will you approve this draft strategy today, that you will add your own recommendations and suggestions, and that you will be at the May 11th council meeting to support this strategy and to call for its urgent implementation. Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback. I understand that you are on the Environment Committee, and there was a lot of work that went into your feedback notes, so I appreciate that work that was put in. And seeing nobody else from the public, we'll move on to new business. Item 5.1, the Colwood Waterfront Multi-Use Pathway Project Update. We're pleased to welcome Gord Bavillier, Manager of Parks, to present the Colwood Waterfront Multi-Use Pathway Project to the committee. Hello, and thank you.
Hello, and thank you. Thanks. Through the chair, today we'll have an update on the Waterfront Multi-Use Pathway Project, and Ryan Campeau, our project lead, will be leading the presentation, and I'll let him do it.
And actually, I'm just going to quickly jump in, if I may, just for our new member here. I just want to make sure that we move through the agenda with a focus on clarity and meeting efficiency. So I'll ask that questions during presentations stay focused on clarification, and we'll open up the broader discussion once we have the items on the floor. Thank you. Please go ahead, Ryan.
Good afternoon, committee members. Thanks for the opportunity to present this. Providing a progress update on Waterfront Multi-Use Pathway Project as presented to Council on March 23rd. So in September 2025, Council directed staff to move forward with the nature-based Green Shores approach as outlined in the Colwood Waterfront Stewardship Plan. This design stays within the approved budget of $6.7 million. And I'm pleased to report that the revised 50% design is now complete and the detailed design is underway. We have a specialized project team in place led by Paul DeGrief, the original author of the CWSP. 49th Parallel Engineering is serving as our civil lead, and we have also dedicated consultants to ensure all regulatory standards are being met. Here are some highlights that are better. They're being developed as part of the detailed design process. Just to give a better example of the features shown that are on the 50% design set. One area worth noting is the Green Shores approach for the Milburn section, which is the frontage road at the south end of the project, often referred to as the duplex driveway. The previous engineering-centric design proposed to raise this frontage road by a meter, including a substantial riprap revetment for storm protection, works that would have exceeded the entire project budget. In contrast, the current design for this section focuses on surface level improvements, acknowledging that storm events will continue to deposit debris on this section approximately 5 times per year. Current management practices involve temporary road closures and debris removal by our public works crews. It's an operational task considered minor in nature, which has only been anecdotally tracked in the past. However, if maintenance demands do escalate, a comprehensive review will be completed using the Green Shores hierarchy for a nature-based coastal adaptation. And the current adaptation strategy for this section could be classified as accommodate or relax. Future conditions may require a shift towards other levels in the hierarchy. So, onto permitting here. So by keeping the works above the high water mark, we have streamlined our environmental permitting window from 12 months down to 4 to 6 months. An archaeological impact assessment is also underway to inform our site alteration permit application. And also, since the writing of this report, we have done some investigation of the soils on the site based on the historical reports of contamination related to the former land use. We've completed the first of a 2-part testing program, and so far the results are chemically clean in comparison to BC contaminated sites regulations. So that's very good news. Onto our engagement strategy. So another update since the publishing of this report regarding the spring pilot project. So although preliminary discussions indicated that this demonstration pilot project was achievable, recent coordination with the BC Archaeological Branch has confirmed that the provincial permitting timelines will extend well beyond the spring planting window, resulting in the cancellation of that pilot project. But we won't have the pilot project this spring. We are very excited about our other engagement tools, specifically our on-site pop-up event and digital updates to keep the community informed as we move towards the full build-out. We are currently in the permitting and detailed design phase, which runs through January 2027. Tendering construction are scheduled for February through November 2027, and this keeps us on track to meet our grant completion deadline in January 2028. Let's get the recommendation here. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation, Ryan. I'll look to the committee to see, now would be the time if there's any questions from this committee. I think we're gonna have. Just gotta push it. There we go.
Yeah, question to Brian. Well, this Brian, is there consideration being given to being test sections of pathway work being done? For example, Paul DeGreff, who's I see a consultant for this project. We had discussed the eggshell section, that little section that's down towards washrooms there, that material that's been in the ground for more than a dozen years, that is apparently very inexpensive, and that section really requires no maintenance that I've ever noticed apparently, and it works fine. So are there going to be things like that seen before this goes through?
So right now, as part of our discussions with the BC Archaeological Branch, it was clarified that we can't do anything there, any kind of ground altering activity, including just adding soil on top. So we're somewhat limited in what we can do in terms of tests and pilots out there. We're just limited to basically test holes for testing for contaminated soils and geotech and things like that. So unfortunately, no.
Are there, sorry. There are sections there now that are existing sections that on the inside where there's a lot of, I looked at the digs that were going on there. And they said there's a lot of material there that's consistent, very consistent size, gradations wise. And I believe they said, where did this come from? And I said, I believe all this came from Royal Bay, the original Royal Bay in 1916, 1925, where they had overs that were not, they didn't have crushing plant on the water on the beach at that time. So they had overs there, and I think that's what they moved down the beach and put on those sections. But you're going to be topping, you're going to be doing no excavation below that grade level.
Thank you for the question. So I'm having I'm having a hard time picturing where exactly that is, but in general, the plan is to build up where possible, and not excavate down. So if that's suitable material as a base, then we'll definitely take advantage of that.
Good, thanks.
Okay. I'm gonna turn your mic.
One last question.
Oh,
Sorry. Somebody else?
is it a question with respect to the report or more conversation? Just, okay.
To the report.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing I noticed that this time frame, it might seem like a long way out, 2028, but we're 2026 right now, and this is supposed to be some sort of completion by January 2028. That's not a very big window, is it?
So based on, thanks for the question. So the engineering centric option, the previous option had a lot more work done in terms of timelines and things like that. And their timeline for the much more expensive option was about, I think it was 6 to 8 months for construction. So in our mind, 12 months for construction is conservative. And also we're hoping that we can get permitting before 2027 as well, and we'd be ready to actually tender sooner than that, and that's what we're preparing for.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think so would you say the biggest risk to this is the permitting? Like, is that where we could find risk in the timeline?
Thanks for that. Absolutely. The archaeological permitting, Provincial Heritage Conservation Act is the critical timeline.
Yeah, that's what, yeah, thank you. Question from Rick McKay. Please go ahead, Rick.
On the project, what report you have there, is there any design or concepts on the footpath and how it's going to be done, or we haven't got there yet?
Here's the question. So I don't recall if there's standard sections in the 50% design. That was an appendix for this report, specifically related to the base. I can tell you that it's going to be like a cart path surfacing, like the finer.
Sorry, I can't hear. Get a little closer to the microphone, please.
Sorry about that. We're looking to do a cart path surfacing, it's called. It's like a finer crushed gravel material for a surface. For most of it, some of it will be asphalt towards the pump station and whatnot. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, just a concept. I mean, when Paul DeGrief first put in his report, how many years ago now, you had an idea of what was going to go on. And I just haven't seen anything there yet of what, as Glenn had alluded to, down by the old degaussing hut that used to be on that berm. That material that's been down there has been there and the way it's been there for years. And I just wonder if it's going to follow the same idea, or is it, or what is going to happen. And the second question is what's going to happen with all those logs you're going to have to push out of the way, all that it's like it's garbage. And I just wonder how that's going to be addressed within the confines of this project.
Sure, thanks for the question. So the path surfacing, so there are no, I don't believe there's any detail in terms of like the construction depths and thicknesses and things like that. But it will be like as I said, it'll be like a cart path surface. It's called. It's like a finer crushed gravel surface, ranging in 3 to 4 meters wide throughout, and the logs. So basically, the plan is to arrange the logs. Basically, just to sort them out with a machine at a sort of a high level, and then just bury the logs with the dune restoration sand as they sit. There's no plan to actually remove and replace those logs. Thanks.
Thank you for bringing that up to the screen. So you would have received a copy of this in your agenda package. So just, it's up there for your reference. Not see, oh, sorry, Marlene, Mr. Cates, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if there's been any consideration given to doing some stuff this year ahead of time. And one thing I'm thinking of is it's really a critical need to get some transportation on Ocean Boulevard. And I think that's something that could be done fairly soon, one would think, at least to show the communities things are moving ahead.
Great, thanks for the question there. So that's a great idea. We'll definitely consider that in the implementation. One other idea that we're thinking of or working on is the south end of the project. The pump station south is definitely a different construction than the rest of the project. So that would potentially be tendered out sort of in advance as its own sort of package in addition to the dune restoration and the trail project. So that's a good session. Thank you.
Great. Is there any further questions from this committee? If not, there is a staff recommendation. I'm happy to read it. So the staff recommendation is that council receive the Colwood, the council receive the Colwood Waterfront Multi-Use Pathway Project Update Report dated March 23rd, 2026 for information, and that the report be referred to the Waterfront Stewardship Committee for information, and further that the report be referred to the Parks and Environment Committee for information. It's somebody to move the staff recommendation. Mr. Ling, great. Is there any further discussion? Nope. Okay, all in favor? I'm not seeing, okay, all in favor? Can you put, if you're all, okay, so anyone opposed? And nobody opposed, so that's unanimous. Thank you. Are opposed? Okay, can you please note that Mr. Willing is opposed? Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to item 5.2, the draft biodiversity report and strategy framework. Next, we have the draft biodiversity reports and strategy framework. Carolyn Richman, climate planner, and Allison Kwan from Diamond Head Consulting are here with us today to provide a brief presentation, and then we will open it up for questions from the committee. So please go ahead, Carolyn. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time today, having a look at the draft biodiversity conservation strategy. Allison and I are very happy to be here today. I'm going to focus in first on giving you a really quick project background just for context, and maximize your time with Allison giving you more information about an overview of the draft strategy and our project process. And then we'll have time at the end for questions and to hear feedback. In your report package, you will have received the feedback that was received from the Parks and Environment Committee earlier this month as well. So just really quick background, this project for biodiversity assessments and the development of a biodiversity conservation strategy is a priority of the Climate Action Plan. And it came to this committee back in October, where we provided you with the draft biodiversity assessment reports, which have been completed. So one of those was the State of Biodiversity Report that is citywide, and one of those was the Human Impact Assessment for Esquimalt Lagoon Migratory Bird Sanctuary. Those assessment reports informed the development of the strategy, as did the public and stakeholder engagement that we've been undertaking since the project began, or since early on in the project. The project began in late 2024. We started to do some the initial stages and then public engagement throughout since the spring of 2025. You also saw last October a framework for the strategy, a framework to help staff and consultants develop the strategy. And so what you have before you today is the draft strategy itself before it goes to council. And so that's just a little bit of context, and I am just going to hand things over to Alison Kwan from Diamond Head Consulting. Thanks.
Thank you, Carolyn. Good afternoon, everybody. To introduce myself again, my name is Allison, and I'm a professional biologist at Diamond Head Consulting, and we've been working closely with Colwood staff on developing the biodiversity conservation strategy. Next slide, please. I want to start off with a high-level overview of the strategy itself. It begins with an introduction to biodiversity. What is it? Why is it important? And how do we protect and conserve it? From there, it discusses the current state of biodiversity found in Colwood and leads into how biodiversity is currently managed in the city. It details the guidance and direction provided by the city's official community plan, the various bylaws, policies, and plans that work together to protect and enhance biodiversity in Colwood, as well as ongoing environmental stewardship led by both local stewardship groups and local First Nations. With an understanding of how Colwood currently manages biodiversity, the strategy moves into its primary message, establishing a plan and roadmap for biodiversity conservation into the future. This section highlights the development of Colwood's own ecological network, and from there, the strategy moves into specific actions, establishing a framework to evaluate and monitor biodiversity, and creating a framework for the city to prioritize and build capacity for implementation. Next slide, please. This slide shows the Colwood's ecological network that was developed as part of this strategy. On the map here, you can see that the dark green shows habitat hubs. The lighter green polygons show habitat sites, and the lines with the dashed in between detail connectivity corridors. Next slide. With that, I'm going to go into a little bit about why connectivity is important. Connectivity is a key concept in conservation biology, where larger, more connected natural areas are better at supporting biodiversity and function better than smaller, disconnected, and fragmented areas. In an urban environment, connectivity across the landscape not only allows wildlife to access habitat, but it also allows for populations to mix and interbreed. Isolated populations can become genetically unhealthy, and connected populations have greater biodiversity, more balanced predator-prey dynamics, and are at a lower risk of becoming extirpated or extinct. Colwood's ecological network identifies three components for connectivity: habitat hubs, which are large sites capable of providing interior refuge habitat; habitat sites, which are smaller areas and serve as stepping stones across the landscape; and connectivity corridors, which are linear pathways that link the hubs and sites together. Next slide. As a part of the strategy, a number of potential connectivity opportunities were also identified. These potential connectivity areas represent locations across Colwood where corridors can be created or where existing areas can be further enhanced and restored to support greater biodiversity. Next slide. Moving into the strategy's development, the vision for this strategy is for Colwood to be a leader in climate action and biodiversity conservation, and an engaged and resilient city that values, protects, restores biodiversity, ecological connectivity, and sustainable relationships with the land for future generations. Next slide. For the strategy, two goals have been established to support this vision. The first one is to conserve and increase biodiversity through protection, restoration, enhancement, and monitoring of biodiversity and natural areas to steward healthy, resilient ecosystems and ecosystem services across the landscape. The second is to advance nature-based solutions, where the city will increase resiliency of natural systems and a community in a changing climate through nature-based solutions and related interventions that are designed to address societal challenges while also supporting biodiversity. To meet the two goals, 5 strategic pillars were established. The first one, protect, restore, and enhance biodiversity. The second is to establish an ecological network. Third is planning and policy integration. Fourth is community stewardship and partnerships. And fifth is monitor and adapt. Under each strategic pillar are a set of objectives and specific actions. In total, there are 103 actions across these 5 pillars. Next. The effectiveness of conservation and restoration actions can't be understood without assessing and monitoring. For this strategy, a detailed guide for monitoring was developed, which include performance objectives and indicators and monitoring metrics and measures. In total, 14 actions were identified as top priorities for the city to focus on, and 9 actions were identified as already being underway and could be further supported and expanded upon. Next. The public was engaged through the strategy development process. Engagement highlights include the virtual and in-person biodiversity celebration event, a public survey, and stakeholder focus group workshop. Staff were also involved in the strategy development through 2 staff workshops, and all the feedback provided by both the public and staff were incorporated into the strategy itself. Next slide. To summarize, the draft biodiversity conservation strategy is a detailed and comprehensive roadmap that guides the city on how to protect, restore, and enhance biodiversity into the future. A key component of this strategy is the development of Colwood's ecological network, which connects ecosystems, protects and restores biodiversity, and increases ecosystem resilience citywide. The strategy provides a monitoring framework and adaptive management as the strategy is implemented, guiding Colwood to be a leader in climate action and biodiversity conservation. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Carolyn.
Thanks, Allison. And I'll just wrap up to say we're really grateful for the Parks and Environment Committee and the Waterfront Stewardship Committee today to have a chance to look at it, the draft, and provide feedback. And then, you know, the staff are looking at that feedback for any refinements and for responses that might be helpful for council. And we're hoping to take the draft strategy to council on May 11th. And yeah, we're just happy to answer any questions that you might have and appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Carolyn, and thank you, Allison. So just to let the committee know, we are being asked to provide feedback for the draft biodiversity conservation strategy. To support this process, our deputy corporate officer will be taking notes throughout our discussion. Once the conversation is complete, a summary of your feedback will be compiled and shared with the committee for review. If there are any specific points you'd like emphasized or clarified in the summary, please feel free to raise them during the discussion or flag them afterward. So before I open the floor, I did want to once again acknowledge and express appreciation for the significant amount of thought, effort, and care that has gone into the development of this strategy, including the comprehensive feedback already provided through the Parks and Environment Committee. I see 2 of them here, and I think the work provides a strong foundation for this committee to build from. So thank you. I don't know if you left much for us to add, to be honest. It was very, very detailed. So thank you for that work. So I'd like to open this discussion up to the committee. Are there any questions or comments from our members or anything that you feel that was perhaps missed that you would like to add? I see Mr. Ling reaching for his mic.
There we go.
It over a bit.
Scooting the mic.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One is, so we're specifically interested in the waterfront in this committee, and obviously the peninsula is arguably from the biodiversity strategy, the most important corridor that currently is present. Do you see any concerns or issues with the waterfront plan as it exists that's going to negatively impact that biodiversity strategy? That's my first question. The second question is the pink potential corridors, which look to be largely over by Royal Bay from what I've seen. Are they potential as in would like to be in existence, or potential as in there's real concrete, well, perhaps concrete's the wrong word, real chance that they will be corridors given the development that's going on?
Thank you very much for the questions. So the first question, I believe, was whether this strategy might, or this work might view, how this work might view the waterfront stewardship plan and whatnot. And you know, this project was not to review that strategy and body of work, but certainly I think that there's some information about the current baseline of biodiversity in that area and some focus areas that the strategy is recommending that certainly would be, you know, our work is integrated. So I imagine that the work on the strategy would work to integrate those priorities and values for sure. But I'm happy to have. Are there any other comments on that? No? Okay, so I think that's probably, hopefully that answers that first question for you. And the second question about the corridors, I think I'll just maybe let Allison speak to the corridors and the different categories in the mapping, if that's okay, Allison?
Absolutely. Yes, the potential corridors were a combination of existing areas that had opportunities, and there are for those sites currently no plans. However, they were identified as areas that can be integrated into the network through some land acquisition and adoption and or work through the city. Some areas on the site, such as the ones in the Royal Bay, were done through the staff workshop, where there are already identified park opportunities and linear corridors that are planned to be implemented through the development process. So those have been included and are currently and in the future will be implemented.
Thank you. Does anybody have any comments that they wish to add or feedback that they wish to add? I had circulated actually to Ms. Power as well as the committee just some feedback that I had that I wish to add. So I don't know if you wanted to bring that up or if you'd like me to read them out, but just some notes that I would like to add on behalf of the committee if the committee agrees with. I did circulate my notes to everyone, so if everybody is comfortable with those. Oh, light up your mic there, Mr. McKay. You have something to add? I will.
In this report, you've identified potential and future initiatives. Can you tell us what you've got to date? I know you're going to be identifying more, but just a little hint. What's up?
Thank you for the question. Sorry, I'm not sure I fully understand the question.
Well, in this brief here, there was, you know, you've identified certain things you can do for biodiversity, and then there was another one below that there's some future identification as to what you're going to do there. I know this in the draft, but what's up? What kind of things have you got identified to date?
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure I'm quite clear on the question either. I think right now that the strategy is just in essentially a draft phase of seeking feedback from the committees. And so the Parks and Environment Committee have, I don't know if maybe actually, Miss, are you able to bring that up? So there's still quite a bit of feedback that is being provided to staff to look at incorporating into the strategy. And so in front of you is the feedback from Parks and Environment for staff for consideration. That would have been circulated in your agenda packages. So if you haven't had a chance to look at it, I'm happy to give you a minute now. It's on the screen. And then our role today is to really just add any of our specific feedback from this committee for consideration and incorporation into the strategy as well. And if you like, I'm happy to read out the recommendation just for clarity for this committee. So the recommendation today is that the Waterfront Stewardship Committee receive the draft biodiversity conservation strategy and provide the following feedback for staff prior to council delivery. So we would be providing our feedback. And that the Waterfront Stewardship Committee recommend to council that council endorse the biodiversity conservation strategy and direct staff to use this strategy as a guiding document for implementation. So just for clarity, Mr. Grove.
Thank you, Councilor Wilson. The question, I don't know if this is helps Rick's perspective, but I think that there's this notion of a plan or a strategy being developed from some point, a starting point, and presumably that be based in something concrete that exists. And then we're going to work our way on from there and add elements to it. Is that fair to say that?
The strategy before you was developed as a result of it was informed by the 2 biodiversity assessments that gave us a scientific baseline for biodiversity in Colwood. And then the strategy you have before us, before you would be, if adopted, a guiding policy document to help guide what priorities and the work of staff and the direction the city would be going in.
Yeah. That's good. That's helpful. So the start point then, presumably, if you've got your list of priorities, I suspect, I don't know, this is maybe not true, that you start with things that are most readily and easily attainable, and then move on to complex issues like concrete solutions that might require moving concrete. Because I get, especially in Royal Bay, I see a lot of corridors opening up that are, I think, road and sidewalks now, and how that can happen to improve that. So if you have trees on a boulevard, then the birds can at least get through, or maybe they can fly over that concrete. But anyhow, I think that it breaks down in terms of my understanding of being able to comprehend what this would do in places in the city where connectivity just seems almost impossible. So I don't know if that is a question for some. I know it is for me, how we build on the given, like Latoria Creek Park. We've got a park, we've got a waterway, we've got trees, we've got a corridor right there. It's wonderful. How do we add more corridors, and at what level, and how much money is available to spend on these things, and how realistic they are? So I guess I'm trying to scrounge around, trying to figure out how to think about the realistic, the realism to the ideas of establishing more connectivity. It's a bit of a vague question, I guess, but it's got to do with priorities, I know.
Thanks for the question. I think just the first part of your comments, I'm wondering if it was in a reference to the section of implementation in the strategy, where what we're choosing in terms of what we're recommending as priority actions. And maybe I'll just speak to that first, if I'm correct in understanding that comment. Just that there are some current and activities that are related to the biodiversity strategy that we want to highlight that are current and ongoing. And there are some top priority actions that are recommended in that implementation section for staff to start with because of each various reasons why those might be prioritized over other actions. And then in terms of digging into how we might implement things like the Colwood Ecological Network, the policy kind of gives a guide to the concept of it and the some of the initial details, but that would require us to dig in further to the how and the timelines and the funding and things like that as we go along. And we try to include in the implementation section, knowing that their capacity is a big issue. This is a big strategy that there are a number of ways that we can hopefully start to build capacity to increase staffing capacity and resources and partnerships and things like that that will help us better move forward and refine the actions that are recommended in this strategy. So hopefully that's
Yeah,
helpful for what you were looking for.
yeah, I think that's helpful, and I think the fact that this exists and that we're going through this exercise is wonderful, and it's quite remarkable being part of it at an early stage. So it is interesting. We have the community garden was approved to develop further, and that to me is part of this corridor development. The more trees, the more activity. That somehow it's all the right thing to do, and it's all part of this movement to a more diverse communities that in a natural setting. So I think that helps, and I'm looking forward to seeing the finished draft. Was it on May 13th or something? Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grove. Are there any further comments or any additions to the feedback, Mr. Willing?
Yes, I just like to comment about the this whole biodiversity strategy. I really believe in some ways we've stepped outside our mandate as to what our focus is. And I think my focus, I believe was in foreshore and always has been in foreshore, but I'm finding that this biodiversity strategy that was actually was put forward by our committee, and I was not in favor of it at the time, has ballooned into much beyond the foreshore that we're involved in. I was looking at a picture today, came up on the screen, and it's of course the whole Colwood. The whole Colwood's is folded into this. So we sit here and we talk about stuff that really is great. It's great and whatever else, but it's not focused on what our end game is for this committee. And for me, it's the waterfront. It's things like Rick just brought up about the logs on the beach. What are we going to do? This is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what's going on the beach. I don't need to be cluttered with all this biodiversity strategy, which I think was just basically a diversion. And we have a time frame which is very tight. I don't know if any of you ever worked on big projects of remediation or whatever else, and it's very careful planning and things like this. But what's happening here is that we're doing more and more of this and less of what we came here for, and we've spent an awful lot of time and energy on it in the last couple of years because we only meet 4 times a year, and sometimes we don't even meet 4 times a year. But I think some of us have some information we'd like to pass on. I apologize for voting against the last report, and the only reason I did that is because I didn't feel we had enough time to feed in some very valuable information that could maybe save time and money to the city of Colwood if that's what they're interested in, and I'm interested in that as a citizen, is saving this. And I'd like to stay a little more focused and a little less stuff about how we're going to bring the pathways in and everything else. And now we've thrown another curveball in this whole process, which is the new urban park planning. Now the park planning and the green space and everything else, and that's been thrown in on top of this, and we're supposed to be more getting into First Nations issues and things like that. as I said, some people, they're participating, but they're not, been no participation. I haven't seen anyone from Songhees. I haven't seen anyone from Esquimalt Band or anything, and I'd love to. I think it's the most important thing. But they're apparently doing their own thing somewhere else, which I don't think is healthy in the way we're working with reconciliation right now. But we haven't reconciliated anybody, as far as I know, or got together with them since this whole process started. And I find it a little more than frustrating.
Okay. I just want to, I appreciate your feedback and I like to give everybody the opportunity to speak, but I do want to bring it back to what we're discussing right now. And so I understand what you're saying about, you know, at the end of the day, the biodiversity strategy, we've got the Parks and Environment Committee covering we're covering all of the ecological areas of the city of Colwood. What we're looking for today is feedback as it relates to the waterfront, which is why this is coming to this committee so that we can offer feedback that relates specifically to the waterfront. So that is why we're discussing it today. And so if there is any other additions or feedback, I would love to hear it. I'm going to, one second here. I don't know who was first. I wasn't paying attention, but
Well, my
This
mic's hot. I don't know why.
your
I-
mic is
I'll-
hot.
I can
But
answer
I'm gonna actually go
Yeah.
to Farley, if that's okay, Mr. Grove. Please go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, how the biodiversity approach is going to be reconciled with the waterfront renewal approach, especially with the pathway. My concern, and living on Ocean Boulevard, I see this pretty much every day, is the pathway, the informal pathway on the lagoon side of Ocean Boulevard. And the number of waterfall I see there, and people walking their dogs, and people ignoring the waterfall and trying to play nice with waterfowl, and that's a huge problem. My concern, and I think I voiced it a year or two ago, was the pathway, how the pathway is going to operate on that side, a lagoon side of Ocean Boulevard, and how you're going to reconcile that with the need to protect the wildlife there. Personally, I have a big concern with that. I think this whole thing could be settled once and for all if we just turned Ocean Boulevard into a one-way thoroughfare. But not going to win at that argument probably in the long run. But I am concerned about that, how that's going to be handled, because this is going to be such a unique area within Greater Victoria. It's going to be drawing a lot more people in, and I think that's going to make the impact on the biodiversity a lot more tenuous.
Thank you, Farley. Krista, for the first time, please go ahead.
Well, good. I just wanted to say I really appreciate the holistic viewpoint that's happening in terms of discussion, looking not only at species that may be impacted in the area that we're talking about for the multi-use pathway, but I think too, and this is part question, part comment, is to understand the needs of the different species in terms of looking at some of those corridor spaces, because it's going to be different depending on the particular species. And I think that also keeping in mind, as mentioned, the increased usage of the area that a multi-use pathway might bring, and how that may or may not impact, or what solutions could be found to address the needs of the species that will be in that area, especially along the waterfront. So I just want to kind of put that out as a half question, half feedback.
Feedback, and just with respect to the feedback, I think Heather is probably going to maybe need some clarification, but I think she was quickly trying to capture what you were saying so that we can certainly add it to the feedback. So maybe if you want to have your question addressed, and then we can get clarity.
Thank you. And I think I can answer kind of both of the questions at the same time. currently right now, there is no, essentially users of the park are everywhere. There's no way to guide them from where the waterfowl, nest, or any of the, the sensitive ecosystems are there. So essentially what we would do is when we build this pathway, we'll use all, green shores, nature-based solutions, and we'll create this corridor to keep people in one place, as well as restore and enhance the ecosystems and the areas for the waterfowl, the migratory bird sanctuary. So it'll give a better balance of, because we're not going to stop anybody from enjoying the lagoons. So this is just an opportunity for us to create a corridor for people and still keep and enhance the ecosystem and that we need down there. And the biodiversity strategy is definitely a helpful tool for us, as well as I think that was included with that was the impact assessment that was done, the human impact assessment that was done, that informs us on the information we're going to need to enhance those corridors and restore those ecosystems.
Thank you, Lauren. I think it was David, Mr. Oh,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
I'm on. I beat you to it, Rick.
Oh, you did. Sorry.
It's a quick question. Cord, you mentioned earlier at the start of the meeting, before the meeting started rather, you made reference to an urban parks public presentation or available information. Do you have a date for that, for the edification of us all?
I do have the date. It's I believe it's next week. It's at Quarry Park, and it's a public engagement session that'll have a lot of information there, and I will get that date.
Yeah.
Right away.
Okay, that's awesome, because I think it would help answer a lot of questions, and then I'm looking forward to it myself. So thank you.
Okay, Mr. McKay.
And clarification on my behalf, from the macro to the micro. The biodiversity study, is this beyond what we're doing with footpaths on the Paul de Grief report, or is this part of it? And what is the bigger plan overall? Because I'm getting really mixed messages here. Is biodiversity fold into the $6.8 million, or is this something that's beyond that? And what about all the other future planning? Like we're talking about logs, and there's been reports by biologists about all this riffraff that are not only here but on the shorelines where it's affecting biodiversity. So is that above and beyond this, or future planning, long range planning? And I'd like to see an overlay of what we're doing. So the $6.8 million is strictly going to be for the footpath based upon the Paul de Grief report, and other things are going to fall in sequence, or is that going to be another project? If we can get some clarification what the big picture is, because there are other issues as well. There's about the bridge and protecting the bridge, which is going to take some little head scratching, which it should be done, because the natural barrier that used to be there is gone because there's no feedstock from the producer's pit. So there's a whole bunch of questions which all dovetail what we're talking about.
Thank you for the question. So the Colwood French Stewardship Plan is the guiding document. And the project the $6.8 million project is what we're calling the Waterfront Multi-Use Pathway Project, which is part of the CWSP plan. Obviously implementing some of those aspects of the biodiversity, channelizing the people where they should be and things like that. Obviously there's lots more to do on top of that, in addition to that's not part of that $6.8 million budget, which Carolyn can speak to.
Thank you. Further to that, I know there's, it sounds like that there's some confusion about different plans and whatnot coming to, just hoping to, again, stress the point that the biodiversity strategy is a larger, broad strategy for the whole city. It's a you know, a broader policy and guide, not for just for the waterfront, but for all activities. And the reason why it was brought to the committee is because the waterfront is an important part of that. So hoping to have your skilled, you know, view in the time that you've spent on this, you know, having that lens on that piece of biodiversity strategy, much appreciated. As Gord mentioned earlier, we hope that the biodiversity strategy is also a tool that helps inform the work under the Waterfront Stewardship Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Oh, okay, Mr. Farley, Gates.
Yeah, I echo Mr. McKay's comments. And we've had experience. I think Mr. McKay's had experience in project management, and I've had extensive experience in that. And these budgets really are shrinking annually. I hope there's something left by the time this thing gets going. And I don't mean to be overly cynical, but I know how budgets get reduced so quickly as the time goes on. So I'm now wondering what has to be rejigged if there's not to be further money going into the waterfront redevelopment process. What has to be rejigged to make the best use of the funds that are frankly going to be available in 2027 or 2028 to do this, which is one reason I reiterate there's some things that could be done this year that could be done in the next quarter, in the second quarter, or certainly in the third quarter of this year to get some things done before the money starts disappearing or shrinking when it comes down to it.
So most of the project funding is based on a federal grant, which is tied to a specific scope of work that was part of that grant application. So that's what we scaled the project to. Thanks.
Okay. Are there any other further comments or feedback? If I'm not seeing any, then would this committee like me to read some of the feedback brought forward? Or are you comfortable just, I'm happy to read them out loud if you like, or you're comfortable with them? Yeah. Oh. Oh, yeah. Krista, please.
I'm comfortable. I just wanted to clarify that my question is also a suggestion that maybe looking at specific species to understand what their needs would be to be able to address creating and maintaining corridors for them as part of that waterfront multi-use path. Hopefully that helps to clarify further what I meant. Thank you.
Just give Ms. Power a minute to get that up, just to make sure that she's captured it accurately. Sorry to put the pressure on you. No problem. Okay, well, maybe while you're doing that, I'll just read the motion again that's on the floor one more time, just for clarity, so that the Waterfront Committee received the draft biodiversity conservation strategy and provide the following feedback, which you're seeing in front of you, for staff prior to council. And that the Waterfront Committee recommend to council that council endorse the biodiversity conservation strategy and direct staff to use this strategy as a guiding document for implementation. So that is the motion. There we go. Ooh. You're going to just have a read of it and just make sure it's correct. Yes, thank you. Wonderful. Okay, so I am going to call the question. All in favor? And that looks unanimous. So motion carried. Thank you. I think that brings us to the end of the meeting today. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Sarah Gibbons and all in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming.
May 2nd.